All right, so today we're diving into something that sounds a little too good to be true. Guaranteed job placement. Now, I know what you're thinking, especially in a field like medical coding with, it's always changing and tough to break into. You're probably thinking, what's the catch? Well, that's why we're taking a deep dive into Erendiz Academy today. They're claiming a 100% placement rate for their grads in Erendishings. Well, we're going to figure out how.
Yeah, it's definitely a bold claim. And when you look into it, this academy has a crazy number of credentials. I mean, we're talking AAPC International Curriculum License Partner, Walski Training and Examination Center, Australian Medical Coding Center accreditation, and even ISO certifications like 21001, 27001, and 9001. It's a lot.
Okay, so for anyone who's not super familiar with all those acronyms, can you unpack what those actually mean, like in terms of quality and, street cred?
Oh, absolutely. So the AAPC, that's the American Academy of Professional Coders, they're basically the gold standard for medical coding education.
Mm.
And being a licensed partner of theirs, well, that means Erendiz is teaching a curriculum that's directly aligned with AAPC standards, which is a big deal for students looking to get certified.
So it's like a seal of approval from the industry leaders.
Exactly. And then you have WellSky. They're huge in healthcare software. And being a WellSky training and examination center, it means Erendiz is also giving students specific training on their software, which is a really sought-after skill. Employers want that.
Makes sense. Aligning the training with what people are actually using out there. And how about those ISO certifications? Those always sound so official.
Right. They are. ISO certifications are internationally recognized standards for quality management. The specific ones, Erendiz has like 9001 for quality management systems and 2701 for information security. Well, they really show that they're serious about providing a top-notch educational experience and making sure student data is safe. And then on top of that, you've got the Australian Medical Coding Center accreditation, which gives them even more global recognition.
So right off the bat, it seems like Erendiz is serious about meeting standards and preparing students for for actually working in the field. But let's get back to that 100% placement claim. How are they making that happen?
One of the first things that really stood out to me was their limited intake policy. They only take a small number of students in each batch, which is pretty different from the massive classes you often see in other programs.
I'm guessing that lets them be a lot more personalized with the teaching.
Exactly. Smaller classes mean instructors can give students individual attention. They can tailor the instruction to different learning styles and really make sure every single student is getting it. It's a completely different experience than just being one of 100 faces in a giant lecture hall.
Yeah, that personalized attention probably plays a big role in their placement rate, too. Students are getting the support they need, not just being thrown into a huge class and told to figure it out.
It's huge. But on top of that, Erendiz also has this really interesting system. They call it an early warning system.
Okay, tell me more about that. Early warning system sounds kind of intense.
It is, but in a good way. They basically use a traffic light system, green, amber, red, to track how each student is doing. Green means they're good, amber means they might need a little extra help, and red means they're really struggling and need more serious intervention.
So it's not just about teaching the material. It's about actively looking for students who need help and then giving them personalized counseling to improve.
Exactly. And it really shows they're invested in the success of every student, not just the ones who are already doing great.
That's pretty different from the sink or swim attitude you see in a lot of other places. But honestly, what really caught my attention was their placement contract system. Is that even legal?
It is. And it's actually a really smart move. Before they even open admissions for a new batch of students, Erendiz gets placement contracts with companies. So they're basically guaranteeing a job for every student who enrolls.
Wow, so they're not just training students and then crossing their fingers hoping they find a job. The job is literally waiting for them when they finish.
It takes all the stress and uncertainty out of the process. Students can just focus on learning and getting good at what they do, knowing that a job is waiting for them at the end.
That's huge. It shows a lot of confidence from those companies, too. What kind of companies are we talking about here?
They seem to work with a whole range of healthcare organizations, hospitals, clinics, billing companies, insurance providers. So there are a lot of different options for students depending on what they're interested in.
That's great. Gives students a chance to, explore different areas of medical coding.
Exactly. And speaking of different areas, let's talk about the specific certifications that Erendiz focuses on. They really emphasize training for certifications like the CPC, CIC, CRC, and BCH-DESI, all of which are super valuable in the medical coding world.
Okay, I got to admit, all those acronyms are making my head spin a little.
Yeah.
Can you break those down for us
Yeah.
and explain why they're so important?
For sure. So the CPC, that's the Certified Professional Coder. It's offered by the AAPC, which we talked about earlier. And it's basically the industry standard. It shows that a coder has a solid grasp of all the major coding tasks and can do them accurately,
So it's kind of like the bare minimum you need to even get your foot in the door.
pretty much. Then you have more specialized certifications, like the CIC, the Certified Inpatient Coder. That one focuses specifically on coding for hospital inpatient services. And then there's the CRC, the Certified Risk Adjustment Coder, which is really important for coders working with risk adjustment models, especially in the insurance industry.
And you mentioned the BCHHC too, right? That's for home health.
Yes, board certified home health coder. So you can see Erendiz is covering a lot of different specializations within medical coding. By training students for all these certifications, they're making sure their graduates are competitive in any part of the healthcare industry.
It's like giving them a Swiss Army knife of skills. They can walk into any job interview feeling confident.
Exactly. And with those placement contracts in place, it's like they're giving them a map to a successful career, too.
It's not just about getting certified. It's about having the right training and
Yep.
the guaranteed opportunity to actually use those skills.
And that combination is what really makes R&D stand out. They're not just teaching medical coding, they're creating a pathway to a real career.
It definitely sounds like they figured something out. But I have to ask, are there any downsides to this whole system? I mean, it can't be all perfect, right?
That's a great question, and it's something we should definitely explore. Arendiz's approach is really innovative, and it seems to be working really well. But there are always potential downsides to consider. We should definitely take a look at those.
That sounds good. Let's dig into that a little bit more and see what students should be thinking about before they jump in. Okay, so we've talked about all the good stuff with Erendiz Academy, but like with anything, there are always, two sides to every coin. So before we get too carried away, let's think about some potential downsides, some challenges that students might face with this model.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's always smart to look at things from all angles. One thing that comes to mind for me is, well, choice.
Choice. How do you mean?
Well, with the placement contracts, it's great that they guarantee you a job, but it could also limit your options. You're basically committing to a job before you've even had a chance to see what else is out there. Explore different specializations or types of workplaces.
I see what you mean. Some people might feel a bit trapped,
Yeah.
especially if they have, specific goals or places they want to work.
Right. And another thing to think about is, well, Erendiz has all these connections with companies, but what if those connections change? Or what if the whole industry changes? Could that affect their ability to guarantee placements in the future?
That's a good question. It's kind of like putting all your eggs in one basket, right?
In a way, yeah. And then there's the human element, too. Sometimes when you know you've got a job lined up, it can be tempting to just coast. You might not feel as motivated to really push yourself in your studies
No.
or to go out and network and build your own connections.
I get that. If you know you're going to be okay, you might not feel the need to hustle as much.
Exactly. But to be fair to Erendiz, they do seem to emphasize continuing education. They encourage their graduates to keep learning and getting more certifications, even after they have a job.
Oh, that's good. So it's not just about getting that first job. It's about building a career.
Right. It's about having that lifelong learning mindset, which is so important in any field, but especially in healthcare.
Absolutely. Things are always changing in healthcare.
They are. So overall, there are definitely some potential downsides to think about, like limited choice and maybe the risk of getting too comfortable. But Erendiz is also trying to address those things, and they're really focused on helping their students succeed in the long run.
It seems like they're really going above and beyond. But I'm curious, they talk a lot about soft skills training too, like on top of all the technical coding stuff. Why is that so important in medical coding?
It's super important. Medical coding isn't just about sitting in a room by yourself and,
Right.
crunching numbers. You're part of a team.
So you need to be able to talk to other people, like
Mhm.
doctors and nurses and billing staff.
Exactly. You need to be able to explain your coding decisions clearly, both in writing and verbally, to make sure everyone understands, and that patient care isn't affected.
So teamwork and communication are key.
Absolutely. You're often working with different departments and people to make sure the billing is accurate and timely, so you got to be able to work well with others and be able to explain things clearly.
So it's not just about being a good coder. It's about being a good communicator and a good team player.
And that's where Erendiz's focus on soft skills comes in. They're not just teaching you how to code. They're teaching you how to be successful in a real healthcare environment.
Do you know how they actually do that? Like, how do they teach soft skills?
From what I've seen, they have workshops on things like communication, conflict resolution, teamwork. They also do a lot of role-playing and group projects so students can practice those skills in a safe environment.
That's a great idea. It's one thing to learn about communication from a textbook, but it's a whole other thing to actually practice it.
Exactly. And those role-playing exercises can help students build confidence, too.
Yeah, it's like a dress rehearsal for the real world. You can
Yeah.
make mistakes and learn from them without any real consequences.
Right, so when they start their actual jobs, they're ready to go, not just in terms of coding skills, but also in terms of communication and confidence.
It sounds like Erendiz is really putting in the effort to make sure their grads are well-rounded.
They are, and I think that's a big reason why they're getting such good feedback from employers.
Yeah, I bet those employers are happy to get grads who are not only skilled coders,
Mm-hmm.
but also good communicators and team players.
It's a win-win.
So it seems like this model is sustainable too. If companies are happy, they'll keep working with Erendiz.
Exactly. It creates a positive cycle.
So if someone's listening to this
Yeah.
and they're thinking, hey, this Erendiz Academy sounds pretty interesting, what should they do?
I'd say go check out their website. They have a lot of information about their programs, the certifications they offer, the whole placement process. You can also contact their admissions team if you have specific questions.
And don't forget to read the testimonials from past students.
Oh, yeah. Those are really helpful. You can see how the program has actually helped people.
Speaking of which,
Hmm.
I heard Erendiz has a really inspiring story about one of their graduates.
Oh, yeah. This one graduate, she had no experience in healthcare at all, but she went through the program, got her certification, and then landed a job at a top healthcare company, all within a few weeks of graduating.
That's
It
amazing.
shows what's possible with the right training and support.
It's a great story. Gives people hope.
It does.
It sounds like Erendiz is doing more than just teaching medical coding. They're creating opportunities.
Exactly.
And that's what makes them so interesting. So I think we've covered a lot today. We've talked about how Erendiz approaches medical coding training, their placement system, their credentials, and their focus on student success. We also talked about some of the challenges and downsides and why those soft skills are so important.
We definitely went deep, but I think the main takeaway is a good career in medical coding is possible. With the right training and support, you can do it.
I love that. And Erendiz seems to be providing all of that and more.
They are. They're really doing something special.
So if you're listening and you're looking for a career that's both challenging and rewarding, medical coding might be a good fit for you. And Erendiz could be the key.
It's definitely worth checking out.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me.
It was great having you. And to our listeners, as always, stay curious, stay informed, and keep diving deep. It really makes you think, if Erendiz can make this placement thing work in medical coding, could it work in other fields too?
Yeah, it's a big change. Imagine more schools doing this, partnering with companies and basically guaranteeing jobs for their grads.
It would change everything. I mean, how many times have we heard about students graduating with tons of debt and then they can't even find a job?
All the time. Right. It's so frustrating. But Erendiz is doing the opposite. They're not just teaching skills. They're making sure you can actually use those skills and start a career right away.
It's like they're taking responsibility for the whole process, from school to work. Are other schools even trying to do that?
I mean, some schools have career services and stuff, but it's usually more like an afterthought. Erendiz is different. They're not waiting till you graduate to start thinking about jobs. They're already making those connections while you're still learning.
That makes a huge difference. Students can just focus on learning, knowing that a job is waiting for them.
And it shows how important it is for schools and companies to work together.
Yeah, when they work together, everyone wins.
Exactly. Students get training and jobs, and companies get good employees.
Erendiz is a great example of that.
They're showing that it's possible.
It's really inspiring.
So the big takeaway here is there are good careers out there, whether it's medical coding or something else. Don't be afraid to look for programs that are actually trying to help you get a job.
That's great advice. Erendiz is proof that it works.
They are.
So if you're feeling lost or stuck in your career, remember there are options.
Do your research. Ask questions. And don't be afraid to try something new.
I love that. Well, I think we've covered a lot today. It's been a fascinating look at Erendiz Academy and their unique approach to mental coding.
It has.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And to all our listeners out there, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.